So very evidence-based practices is what industrial organizational psychologists bring to the table. Now, in my career, first as HR and CHRO and HR director at a country level, and then later as a director for talent and leadership development. Similar to Martine, my engagement has always was largely with the organization. And when I was internal, both as a line leader or HR partner or as a partner on development, even I just began to realize that bringing teams together unlocks a certain something, a chemistry, a magic. And so for me, I called it sort of the micro, meso, and macro levels. So the micro level is the one-on-one. The macro we engage with for organization change, and that in between meso layer was the team. So that's how I got into it. And then for the last 10 years, I've been running my own consulting business. So there, of course, I do executive coaching, but I also have had the privilege of working with some teams and helping them on their journey to becoming high performance. So again, Jaya, thank you for inviting me. And it's already been a great pleasure interacting and working with Janine and Martine to bring this webinar together. So really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Pratya. Really looking forward for this conversation. Thank you. Jenny, can I request you?
Yes. Thank you again, Jaya, for the invitation to come on board with this webinar. And as Pratya mentioned, it's been great getting to work with all of you initially and now here. So I had the privilege of meeting Jaya and Martine on our coach supervision course. So we were working together for 9 months, nearly every week, which was wonderful. So, and I'm glad that we can continue to keep connecting in this way since we've completed our certification. So I am Australian and I live outside of Melbourne at the moment, but my business is based in Qatar in the Middle East. So I'm not too far away from India. And I started a coach training business with my business partner, Marie Quigley, about 8 years ago, I believe. And so we started a business where we train people to become certified coaches. Our program is approved by the International Coach Federation. And as a consequence of starting that business, we've grown into mentoring coaches, coaching coaches, supervising now coaches. But also we get a lot of organizations in Qatar coming to us for executive coaching reasons, but also team coaching. So we've run many team coaching opportunities in Qatar, working with government organizations, working with organizations like Vodafone, blue chip organizations. So we've had a lot of experience in different ways and means around coaching. So again, it's great to be here to share our experiences with Empower World team coaching. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Great. So I think team coaching is becoming a essential conversation in the organization, especially because of the complexity that we all are witnessing. And I was very curious to understand some of the things that are not very obvious from outside and some of the questions that come into my end. And we floated the registration forms. We see a lot of questions coming about what is team coaching, what kind of issues get addressed through team coaching, how is it different from one-to-one coaching, and how can you coach someone in a group? How can you coach someone when everybody's together? Because we have been taught to do self-discovery process in a one-to-one structure, which is more confidential. So we said, okay, let's unpack today to understand what is team coaching and go a little bit deeper into it. So before I start asking some of the questions to all of you, a little bit of housekeeping. I'm requesting all of you, all of the attending participants to go through the conversation, engage with us. The chat is available. And we have tried covering all the questions that we have received, tried to cover everything through a structure. So we request that you engage in the conversation initially, and in the end, around 15 minutes to 6, we'll have the opportunity, if your question is not answered in the conversation, then put it on the chat box, because then, it'll help all of us to have an engaging conversation. So that's my request to everyone. And what I have tried doing is, being a coach, have a very bad habit of asking very structured questions. I've created a structure of questions for all of you. And since we are a small panel, I think it'll also be nice that everyone can share their own perspective about each one of them. Will that be okay? Great. So I think the first question that Simon Sinek pushes us to say is why. And that is why we need to talk about team coaching. So over to you. Maybe I can invite Pradnya first to help us understand, why do we even need to team coaching? Why is this topic important?
So I'm going to answer it a little bit outside in, Jaya. What I mean by that is, coaching now has become a fairly well-established field, over 30 years. And of course, a little bit still in its recency in India, but even there, I think it's been around for more than 10, 15 years, right? And can you hear me, by the way? Am I audible? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, very important. Yeah.
So the one way to look at all of us as coaches and who take pride in our profession as a coach and this fraternity is, any field that is established needs to think of its own disruption, because disruption will happen. And also to not get complacent about what we are doing and how we are, what impact we're having in our own skills. So if I look at it from that perspective, and Peter Hawkins, who's known for his seminal work in the area of team coaching, talks about potential disruptors to the field of coaching. He talks, among others, about self-coaching. He talks about AI-based and chatbot really based coaching, where of course some of the expertise has been programmed in by coaches such as us or such as you, but AI-based coaching, insourcing of coaching, among various disruptions. Now, team coaching might be something which is a differentiated or an added service that all of us as coaches can offer. So I'm taking a very commercial, a very pragmatic view to this, which is, I said, I'll start outside in. I also personally think it'll be a little harder for the chatbots and the AI to replace in the beginning, because what's involved in team coaching is not just the skill around one-on-one and solving any one individual's problems, but it's also the dynamic of the team coming together. So it really does challenge us to remain present, not just for one, but for the team, and also a little bit of group coaching skills as well as team coaching. So I think even from a self-coaching, it's difficult for teams to coach themselves, because by the very virtue of them being disparate individuals, somebody's going to have to step up to do that facilitator role. So I think a very pragmatic way, that might be one way to look at why team coaching. I think the other reason is the impact of coaching. If we think about larger impact that our coaching needs to have on the organization, then I think, as I said before, working with a team creates a little bit bigger and unlock and larger impact.
Thank you, Pradnya. And when I ask the question, why team coaching, I'm also getting curious about when it took so long for organizations to understand why coaching. What's the destiny of team coaching in our country? What's going on? Because we still see a huge gap between, and this is to everybody. There's a huge gap between offering coaching and buying coaching. There's still a lot of organizations who are yet not able to see that as an value-added service. So how is team coaching going to make a difference to the business environment, to the challenges that businesses are facing in the VUCA world?
I'm unsure about if I'm answering straightforward question, but if I had 3 points to point out about why team coaching, it would be because complex issues and issues dealing with the system of the team rather than individuals cannot be solved otherwise, as Pradnya said. It's not one-on-one coaching. It's not an addition of one-on-one coaching that will solve the issue of the system and of complexity. And issues of complexity and systems are more and more present in the world today. So well, there is complexity and there is interdependency. And we know that right now. I mean, right now in the situation where we are, and with the idea that the virus doesn't stop at the border of a country, and that if you want to get masks, you will have to deal with another country. Nobody is autarcic today, so we understand that better, right? And efficiency of a team is a big source of added value for the businesses because of all that. And also the last thing, why team coaching, is because team coaching is an extremely high return investment. It has a high return. It's not very expensive to have a coach for 2 years or one or several coaches around a team for 2 years compared to what is the added value that the team will be able to display with that help. So I'm unsure about if I'm really dealing with why don't people buy team coaching, but why team coaching exists. That's these are the 3-4 points that I can mention.
Thank you. That's very interesting.
If I could just add to that, Jaya,
Yeah.
both ladies have taken the words out of my mouth. But to add to that even more, that team coaching will support the people in the team to step up as leaders as well. So it's not looking at just one person and developing their leadership skills. As a team, your support as a coach that's supporting the team, they're all picking up in their leadership skills. They're all learning from each other. There is that beautiful synergy that's taking place. That goes with that old saying, two heads are better than one, and that rubbing, that friction that can sometimes come up, which can create beautiful diamonds. So other reasons to support team coaching.
Interesting. So I think that brings me to the question as to what do you call a team coaching? Because one way when we say coaching is a very intimate conversation. And when we say team coaching, we get confused as to what do you mean by team coaching? Is it facilitation? Is it group facilitation? Is it different from that? Is it something else? What is systemic coaching? These are the questions that come to my mind when I think about what's team coaching. So can you help us with simple definition of what is team coaching?
Yes, let's build on what Janine said. Janine said it's about the team. So team coaching, it's coaching the team as an entity, not the people in the team. Of course, the team comprises the people, but the team is a separate entity. It's a separate entity, and that's what team coaching does. If you go to team facilitation, which now is quite spread out, team facilitation, in fact, is tasks facilitation. It's a task of many people around that you are facilitating a task. You're not facilitating the team or the people one-on-one. It's the group in the task that you're facilitating. So it's basically the task. If we go to team building, which is a word that's been around for a long time and that people very genuinely or legitimately wonder why team coaching is different from team building. Team building is more of an event. It's an event that raises the level of proximity between the members of the team. Now, there are two issues about team building, and that's the reason why Peter Orkin spoke about the disruption in coaching that team coaching has brought. The two issues with team building is, one, it's not sustainable. If you come and you do one event, maybe two events with the team, it will locally in time, I would say for a little time, improve a few stuff. But it doesn't work with the team as a team in its everyday life, in what they do, etc. The second one, which is slightly different, it's not necessarily transferable. Depends on what team building is made of. But very often it's about off-site exercises, it's about climbing the mountains or whatever. And that is not necessarily transferable. Many people do not react the same way when they are in a sports team, on leisure on Sunday, or in an off-site as when they were in their job. The stakes are different. And so team building by nature lacks the real stake and the real environment and the length and the duration of the life of the team. Now you mentioned group coaching. Group coaching is a wonderful alternative or complement to individual coaching. It is coaching people individually in the group. So we take people who have similar issues or similar position, and we coach them in a group. But it's really it has more to do with individual coaching than with team coaching. Was it the simple you asked for?
It is interesting. So what I'm understanding is there is team coaching, then there is team building, and then there is team group coaching, and there are subtle differences in all these processes while they all might look similar. So whether you are coaching a person in a group, or are you coaching a team, or are you conducting an event, the frequency and the depth makes all the difference in these processes is what I'm understanding. Is my understanding correct?
Yes. And I think, as Martin was saying, if you think about team facilitation, you're really facilitating on the task, to use Martin's word, because there's a piece of work that they need to come together. And what you're really facilitating is getting them to work on that together, whether it's a strat plan or it's an issue or a problem solving. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you're talking about team coaching, you're getting the team to understand itself as an entity of these individuals who are interdependent. There's a common purpose that binds them together. And just getting them to become aware of that. What is it that forges them into an identity? And actually, there's some amazing work that's been done many, many years ago by a person called John Katzenbach, who talks about the fact that actually you don't always have to become a team. You can be very effective work groups. So now you're really talking about a group facilitation, or call it a team very euphemistically, team facilitation. But when a team becomes a real high performing team, the unlock of productivity or performance that they can have is significantly higher. But it doesn't mean that everybody needs to become a team. Who's a team is when they're interdependent, there is a common purpose, and the task is bigger than what any one of them can accomplish alone. So there's a need, fundamentally there has to be a need to come together as a team.
So another distinction that I'm hearing is there's a difference between a group and a team, which a lot of us really, basically overlaps, and how team is an entity and how they have a purpose to be able to move forward together. Great. So then that brings to me a question as to what are some of the challenges for which organizations say, I need team coaching and I don't need team building, or I don't need group facilitation, I need team. How do they identify? What kind of issues you guys have been resolving in the organization so far?
So if I can add to that, Jaya, and just going back to the previous question, the team coaching is in service of the organization. Mm-hmm. Whereas the individual coaching is more specific, it's more based on the individual, it's more intimate, whereas the team coaching is definitely in service of the organization, and it's utilizing the skills of coaching. So again, in team coaching, we're not advising, we're not guiding, it's that 80-20 rule of listening, using powerful questions, deep listening, using intuition, providing feedback. So we're supporting as coaches the team's outcomes, which could come from the team itself, or perhaps from the organizational sponsor. So the organizational sponsor might come to us as a coach with challenges such as conflict, team conflict, or poor performance, or not working as effectively as possible. Or it could be purely around purpose and values. It could be around motivation. Or it might be really, let's support our team to build their leadership skills. Let's support them to be better leaders, more effective. So it could be for a variety of different reasons, but there's some of the reasons that Marie and myself have worked with teams in terms of team coaching.
Okay, so
sorry.
yes, yes,
I was saying maybe we can gather examples. I have been thinking of two examples on which I worked recently. So one, and these are a real example, but it gives you a generic kind of topics. So it's, for example, being able to smoothly go through a transversal process. For example, imagine that there's a new product in whatever industry, let's say mechanical industry. So there's a ramp up for that new product. So what we have from conception to mounting the parts and delivering to the client. There's a lot of different tasks. It's industrialization, supplying the raw product. There's several, many production steps of producing the parts and the quality control and the delivery of these in various plants, because we have plants all over the world now, etc. And so there are many bottlenecks, many possibilities of misunderstanding, many lack of communication, many losing tracks, and all that might drive the organization crazy. And all that will only be resolved if it is resolved in a leading team. And so the place where it will be solved is when the leading team is able to mirror that smooth throughout process. So that's the kind of reason why we would come in and coach the team to be a team. And to come back to what Pragya said about, do you need to be a group? And each member relates to their leader and the leader does the arbitrage, or do you need to be a team? In this kind of example, they need to be a team. And that's why we can help.
So I'm hearing from Janine and from you and Pranya is that team coaching is applied when there is a long-term purpose. There is a deeper need for people to execute something and achieve something rather than task-based or one-time intervention. But this is more about how do you become an entity and really perceive that in your environment and work according to that.
Yes, but yes, and long-term can be short. Imagine right now in our situation, in our urgent situation, crisis unit in hospitals. They need these units. They exist on the paper, right? But nobody ever have them work. But then suddenly they need to work. So how are you going to have an efficient crisis unit in a hospital tomorrow morning? So long term, maybe quite short in absolute terms, right? But these people need to work for the next month because they will be together for the next month. They will have to take the right decision. They will have to make as much of a consensus as they can, or recognize differences, etc., etc. So that is typically a team coaching need that needs to be implemented right away. So it won't be one event. It's the same mindset as what we described, but it can be in a shorter time, because there is a purpose.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. It's getting interesting, and the questions that we decided, I have more questions, but I will be mindful about everybody on the group and not ask you right now. So what are some of the, I'll go back to my question. I think I'm still looking for answers as to what are typical 2 or 3 or 4 challenges that organizations have called you to solve for and say, hey, this is the purpose, this is the problem we are solving, this is the problem we are facing, help us resolve this, and apply team coaching or whatever. What could be some of the examples?
So may I take that and then to begin with?
Yeah, sure.
Really similar experience to what Janine was talking about. Most of the times I've been brought in, actually I would categorize into 3 things. One is when a new leader has come in. Either he's come in from outside or he's been promoted. So as part of the onboarding, coaching, and the team assimilation, sometimes that gets extended into the, some really beginning to coach the leader, but then it gets extended and expanded into saying, let's keep the team together, because most of the times they want to accelerate the growth, not just of themselves as the team. So that's one time it happens. The other is very similarly, we get called in to say, my team isn't working together. They're not collaborating. And usually it's a leader of a team for whom teamwork is very important. See, for a leader for whom teamwork is not important, or he doesn't see necessarily any value on the collective coming together as an entity, they almost never call us in. So I don't know whether that's been you guys' experience also, but almost invariably the leader who wants and believes in teamwork and just feels so frustrated that team isn't working together, then they'll bring us in and it helps them to take that forward, you know. So having that, and thirdly, often, sometimes it's goals like they are a team, but a big goal has been set up. So new strategy in place, and they have to hit that in the next 12 months. They've actually done all their planning. Their plans are in place. Everybody's onboarded, the sales team. And then the leader will invite us in and say, but you know what? I need you to come and work with this team, because this team is going to drive. We've done everything, work on the team together. So those are usually the areas that we get called in. I've been called.
And in fact, Jaya, I had forgotten that actually last week we got approached by some organizations in Qatar on the basis of the pandemic at the moment. There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of worry with the leadership teams of some of these organizations. So they have come to us to ask for group support as well as one-to-one support. So it's not something that we've started yet, but hopefully we'll be starting very soon. So another example for
the crisis in the crisis situation.
Yeah,
great. Thank you, Martin. Would you like to add something to that?
Well, I've given you a first example, and the second was the hospital. But I want to build on Pratnya's example. When there is a transformation and reorganization, the reason why they called us is because the normal tendency in a big reorganization is for people to limit the territory of the field they're acting on to where it's obvious for them, to where they have their hands on. And so some people will believe they're achieving very fast the transformation. For example, I don't know, sales department will be doing that very fast. And then IT department, for example, will be slower. And this depends on the people inside, but it depends mainly on the circumstances, okay? They're not in the same situation, they're not facing the same thing. It might be easier for a sales team to move on to a new product. Just imagine when those big software companies moved from selling us a one-time license of whatever, your desktop softwares into a yearly subscription. So that was a big change for everybody. So it was a big change for the salespeople. But it's not that complicated to move these people. Yes, there is transformation. But what about the IT? What about the IT that supports the accounting, for example? There were physical obstacles, I would say. And so what usually happens in Pranya's example is that the pace is not the same for all of them. But the transformation will fail if you don't have the same pace. And where does that happen? Where's the orchestra that gives the pace for the rest of the people to dance on the pace? It's the leadership team. So very often team coaching of a leadership team in reorganization is about setting the same pace, which comes through setting the same purpose and getting the complexity so that the rest of the organization, just as the dancers, will be on the floor on the pace of the orchestra.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm hearing as a common theme across all these examples is, especially when there is a change in the organization or a change of a leader, is when you're looking for somebody external coach to support that transition, right? Suddenly when I was talking this, a picture flashes up in my mind about when we go to a new place or travel place, we are assigned a guide who knows it a little bit, who can guide us. Even if the guide is not doing the work, he's just there with us, but really supporting the whole transition and making sure that we get through that transition. So That's something that came up for me. So my next question is, and I'm really more mindful about the time now, as I would like to give opportunity to everybody to ask question, is what kind of structures and format do you choose? Is it like department-wise conversation? What happens to one-to-one coaching when you're engaging in team coaching? What happens to confidentiality? What happens to, how is it organized? Let's say, how do you make a decision that these four people will be in a team? How many people are in there in team? So all those questions are coming in my mind about structure and design, about team coaching. So how would you like to respond to that? And over to all of you, actually. Janine, you want to go first?
Sure. In terms of numbers and the size of groups and where and who to coach, I believe, I mean, based on our experience in the past with clients, we'll have a discussion with the sponsor to work out potentially what are perhaps the challenges, the opportunities, and be guided by the sponsor as well as to what those groups should look like. And often the sponsor will have ideas about what that's like, but otherwise we will make recommendations and they'll follow those recommendations. So it's really based on the requirements and the needs of the sponsor and the organization. What's really important is the contracting piece, the ways of working. So setting those up with each group that we work with to be able to create a safe place for the group to be able to work in. So addressing things like confidentiality, no right or wrong, there's just learning. So all of those really important boundaries that supports a transparent and open conversation, knowing that potentially it may take some time for people to open up, but it's really important to have those contracting ways of working, rules of engagement, whatever you like to call them, from the outset to support the group. And of course, as things go along, perhaps those ways of working are being stretched. So it becomes then a perfect opportunity to dive down deeper as to what's happening and what needs to be in place to ensure that we can continue to work together as a team. So everything that comes up is particularly challenge, is perfect opportunity to explore and get curious about it. What does it mean for the individuals in the group and the group as a whole? So I don't know if I've answered the question there.
Yeah, I'm getting some answers. I think I'll have more answers once I hear everyone. Thank you. Pradnya, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so my coaching with teams has actually, most of it been with leadership teams, so country leadership teams, for example. So the structure is already in place. What I always will tell the coaching leader, the leader of the group or the sponsor is, sometimes I'll ask them to wait because let's say one of the team member is in transition, like someone's going to be replaced, for instance. So I'll say, let's begin this engagement once you know who's on the bus, right? As once you know who's on the team. So let's get the team in place first, and then let's begin. But usually, so these are people who are from different, functional leaders within the organization. However, that's not where it should be limited. Team coaching could work beautifully for project teams, for example, in organizations, or medical teams, right? Hospital teams, healthcare teams. And so there, the starting point always is who is the team, what's their mission. So for me, the questions are who's the team and what's their mission and what's the purpose? What is the reason for them to come together as a team? And that's really the beginning point. And sometimes, especially if you're working with product teams or IT teams or healthcare teams, there's going to be some in and out because, someone may exit and will get into the team. So I think there are several models of understanding of team development that as a team coach, we need to still keep in mind. The simplest model, of course, is the forming, storming, norming, performing, and then adjourning, right? That we all know. Because anytime a team member changes, you kind of have to quickly go back to that forming, storming. And as a team coach, you need to just be aware of some of these models. So I think more than structure, I rely more on the process. And if the more trust you build and the more safe you create the environment and the more you trust the process, the magic begins to happen. And I just call it magic because you can feel it when, right? I mean, when teams come together and they start performing, I don't know how else to explain it, but it's just this whole energy you feel with the team. It's almost like a cloud that sits on top of the head of those teams when they come together. And it just becomes a very, very sacred space in a way. But it takes effort, and you need to sort of be authentic and be there for everyone. Know when to pull some people back who are going to create unsafe zones for others, right? So those are all things you need to do. Still remaining in a very coach mode, which is non-judgmental, supportive, more questioning.
So trust and psychological safety and contracting is what I'm hearing in both of your conversation. Martin, would you like to add something to that?
If I were to take a different perspective, what has been said is absolutely perfect. If I were to take a different perspective, more practical, more descriptive, not practical, descriptive, what has been said is pretty practical. I would say it can involve one-on-one interviews at the beginning, for example, or at a certain moment in the journey, to be able to gather what the team thinks and not what the people think. So it's an interview of the people, but then our job is to be able to say out loud what the team is saying and has not yet said. So it really has to be and confidential and transparent. And so that's one of the skills that we have to have, is to be totally confidential on what the people have told us and to be totally transparent on the process and being able to give back the words of the team to the team. Another point, very descriptive, that I would add is we cannot coach the team without the leaders. So for a long time, it's been said the leader has a coach and then the team has a coach, and these people are two different people and they don't speak to each other. This has proven wrong. And the people who wrote about this changed their mind. And it's really important that the leader is an essential member of the team with a different role. But and so you could have a team leader who has a coach on something else, on a very personal issue. And you could have a coach for the team, but the coach for the team has to have a certain proximity with the leader. It cannot only see the leader in the group. That wouldn't work, because the leader will set the pace, even though it's been participative, even the decisions are made participative. At the end of the day, it's the leader, and not only in hierarchical structures, but also even if you take holacracy, you cannot not have a personal, individual relation with the leader of the circle, because these people are the ones talking outside. So in any kind of structure, you need to have the most important components in terms of influencing the group in a closer relationship to the coach, or it won't work. And that is also very difficult. It's one of the skills of team coaches, to be able to have a closer relationship with some of the components, but not be their coach exclusively, and still always remain the coach of the team. And this on our perspective, it makes the difference between team coaching and group coaching, or individual coaching. We are in a different space. And of course, it can include team building, it can include group coaching for the members of the group who happen to be the member of the team, but in a different role.
Okay, interesting. So that means, so there are more layers opening up, and which means that this time won't be enough to even dig deeper into this conversation, because it seems like there are more elements to it about the competencies and shoulds and shouldn't, and what inclusivity is required, what environment is required, what kind of contracting is required, how do you build trust, how do you build psychological safety with everybody in the team, what happens if some. So there are a lot of questions that are opening up, and that's great. That's the perspective which we all are looking for. So in your experience so far, what kind of circumstances have arisen where team coaching would have either become very successful or did not work out? It maybe failed.
I can tell you my some of my experiences or what it's led me to. Everything Martin said, I completely resonate, which is, when you're doing the team coaching, the leader plays an important role. And I think the team also understands that as a coach, you're going to have some different relationship with the leader. Honestly, the only time the team fails to progress forward, it's almost as if like the limit on the team progress sometimes happens by the limit of the leader and the team leader's willingness to go past a certain way. And there could be all kinds of reasons. One is their own evolution or growth or where they want to go personally. Sometimes it's also their own personality that gets in the way. And so like a time comes as a team coach where I've had conversations with a leader of a team saying, you know what, I'm not going to be able to help the team move forward unless you've taken some very specific decisions on some of the members of the team. And that's hard for leaders because this is the team with whom they've built, they've been successful. And yet for the team to move forward, there are maybe sometimes people on the team who need to not be there, or he needs to have, or she needs to have that tough conversation with them and hold some of them, hold drive the accountability for the team behaviors and so on. So what drives success? I think openness of the team members, their own desire to be coached and sort of be in this self-disclosure mode. And secondly, the team leader's willingness to take that one step beyond and take their responsibility in taking the team forward. And I think what stalls it in my experience has really been sometimes where the leader then reaches a point saying, that's not that explicitly, but you kind of sense up to here and not beyond, because what's required to take the team forward, maybe the leader is not ready to do. That's been sort of a little bit of my experience.
So there's something that interestingly I refer to as leaders, a team's potential or a company's potential is equal to their leader's potential. So if the leader is not developing, that means the team will be at a certain place, or if it is a company owner, it's their potential which determines where the organization will go. So that's what I'm culling out from your conversation. Great. What would you like to say, Martin, Janine?
One way, it's what Pranya says is totally true. We cannot move beyond the leader. And sometimes it's not the leader limiting, because what success for team coaching requires, it's quite the same as for building team efficiency, which is trust, which is engagement, and which is alignment. And sometimes that may not lack potentially in the team, but it lacks in the environment. So
system.
Sometimes the leader is not the issue. The issue is the wider system. I mean, if you look at trust, trust is that comes with the sense of proximity and belonging to a group, right? So this is absolutely required. But the level of trust we need for team coaching and developing from a group to a team beyond the storming, I would say, or even reaching the storming, right? It's a level of trust in vulnerability. It means if I don't achieve my goals, or if I mess it up or whatever, I will not be harmed by another member. That's the level of trust that we help build as the first phase in team coaching. And sometimes that cannot exist in the corporate environment of that company. So sometimes it's not the leader, and it requires, if it's not very well spread in the corporation, you can still have some leaders who are able to still have that emerge in their team, but then it requires such an energy from the leader and such risk-taking from the leader that sometimes it's not the leader issue. It's the environment. Also, team coaching requires engagement, as you said, Pranya. The engagement derives from the purpose. So there needs to have a purpose, but also of an engagement. It means the energy, the effort behind that. And sometimes it's not the right time, as you said earlier, Pratnya. It's just not the right time. Their energy is on something else. So they will still move on the carriage with square wheels for a while before they have time to change the square wheel in a round wheel. But sometimes it's not up to them. It's up to the environment. Okay, and sometimes you have a star in the place. Either it's a star with lots of great competencies, or sometimes it's a star with picky, I don't know, picky administrative, very important skill, but still. And we all know. I mean, think of hockey. You have sometimes sports team with a star, but they do not win their games on the long run. Why? Because it's not a team. Because sometimes the star believes the people needs to serve them, and that's it. But a star in the team needs to be able to help the star achieve their outstanding skills. So really, yes, the leader is our number one issue. I mean, contracting and team coaching with a leader we feel will not have the energy or whatever, it's not a good idea for the team. Then there were those two other, environment and some members of the team might also work against the team coaching efficiency.
Interesting. When you say that, I'm reminded of the movie Invictus, about Nelson Mandela and how he has brought the country together. And it was so hard for him to convince the leader of the team, and then how everybody came together. It's a great example of maybe loosely called team coaching, maybe. Jenny, what's your experience about the success and failure of team coaching?
I don't think I can add much more to what Martine and Pradnya have shared beautifully. However, I will say, very briefly, in my own experience, in Empower World's experience, it has been, the success and failure does come down to the leaders in the organization, and right from the very top. And if the support is there from the top and the involvement is there from the top, and they're engaged and they're bought in and they're also part of it, it really does support the success of the team coaching, group coaching initiatives, whatever they may be. But if they're not there, if they see themselves at a different level, then you can hear it. You can hear all the levels below saying, well, if they're not doing it, why are we doing this? This is potentially a waste of time, because they're still in their tower. The link isn't there. So it can absolutely disconnect the whole thing if the leader's not bought in, engaged.
Interesting. And I think that goes for any kind of interventions that we do for the organizations where there is no alignment with the senior leadership about what we are trying to achieve. That's great. My last question is, how do you deal with behavioral issues when it comes to team? Because I'm sure you're not working one-to-one with them. You're working in a group. There are few people who are not behaving well, or not showing the interest, or not showing the intent and willingness to work together. How do you deal with them?
I think if I can start, again, setting up those ways of working, again, is that critical thing that we must do as coaches. And if we can address those kind of issues in our ways of working, so for example, if we notice that someone isn't engaged, if we notice that someone is off track or interrupting, how do you as a team, how do you want to address that? How will we address that when that comes up? So you hand it over to the team for them to decide, how do we deal with that?
Mm.
And so when it does happen, we can go back to that agreed way of dealing with that. So that's one thing. And if it does show up and it does keep repeating, then it's getting curious about it. And again, being curious, asking questions to discover what's going on. Do we need to look at our ways of working again? Is there something that we need to shift or change? But as I say, it could be a wonderful opportunity to get curious, to find out what's going on underneath the behavior, and again, support the whole group to create awareness about what's the impact on them as well. What are they noticing as a consequence?
A bit of coaching happening there for people to reflect. All right.
Yeah, so bring everybody in.
Interesting. That's great. Martin, Pradnya, would you like to add something to that question? Okay, great. So I think great conversation. I'm just getting too intrigued and interested, and I can see more and more layers about the questions that are coming in my mind, and I can engage with you later about that. But right now, what I would like to do is open the floor to everyone, and because we have a small group today, request everybody to just ask their questions if they or any comments, or what are they learning from this conversation, just anything that they would like to speak about. So over to all of you. Who would like to go first? Any questions that you feel is not answered? Any comments?
Yeah, I would suggest that we take Janine's very well described posture. So, dear group, what does that mean that you have nothing to say? Is this because we answered everything, or is it because you're shy, or is it because there is something that you want to tell us but you're unsure about the others? What is it?
Yeah, it'll be nice to hear a fifth voice in the room.
Hi, this is Avik this side. Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, Jaya. Hi, Janine, Martin, and Pradnya. It's been a wonderful session listening to all of you, and very enlightening. And it's so sweet of you to ask us to step in and ask. There are a lot of things that we'd like to ask, and you've made the conversation very interesting. So, I just want to ask, like, there are different markets, right? And a lot of the time, the person that you want to sell a product to, or you want them to benefit from your product, they do not know of its efficacy or of its benefits. They do not believe, suppose, in the concept of coaching. How do you make them see value in that? A lot of time corporates think, no, we don't know, we don't need this. We're doing fine as it is. They do not see the potential in team coaching probably. So how do we get around that?
I can try an answer. No, Pranya, go.
No, I think that's a great question. And what I do is I think, first of all, I free myself of the responsibility that I'm selling anything. I will go and engage with a leader to say, you know what, here's some kind of stuff that has brought value to few other people. And is that something that might interest you? I think when I open it up that way, and when people see my passion around it, then I think something begins to happen. You can engage in a dialogue. But I'm going back to when was the first time I ever sold the concept, right? Because now I can say, because we've been doing this work, so we have a lot of credibility built in. I think with that also, I would have been very honest to say, you know what, here's stuff that's happening in the field. Here are some concepts, here are some models. And I think it can bring value to you. Would you like me to? So lean on credentials of what else you've done well. Be honest to say, without really saying I've never done it, but in a way to say, here is stuff, but be thoroughly prepared. Do your research. I mean, team coaching is a lot about also building some expertise, not just in coaching, but understanding psychology of teams and psychology of groups. And there's some wonderful people who've done some wonderful research in the area. Katzenbach, Amy Edmondson, Manfred Katz de Vries from Europe. And they've taken very different angles to it. So just build a little bit of that and then trust your instinct as a coach and go and say, let's try this together. Co-create it and generate and make it a generative process. So generate value together.
And I think my perspective also is that business don't want to buy what you're selling. They want to buy their solutions. So having a conversation around what this can solve for you, it has a very different flavor than I'm offering coaching or I'm offering team coaching, because really it's not what they want to look for.
Yeah. Well, one magical question I can offer to you, Sanjeev, is what would make a difference for you and for your business right now in your team? And then sometimes it's awareness about economical issues. Sometimes it's about the tension between X and Y. Sometimes it's about them talking to each other. Sometimes, and you just ask about it, coach them on their issue, and something will appear. And if they really have a team issue, and as Pranya said, it's really important, they need an efficient team. If you have and an issue and they need an efficient team, then you get the recipe for team coaching. They will need it.
Thank you so much. That really helps a lot. I'll try and go work more on the process, I guess.
Thank you for asking the question.
I don't have a question. I just have immense gratitude for you guys. It's unbelievable. I am a facilitator and a coach, more facilitation than coaching. And I just found out what I need to do going forward. It was amazing. I'm still reeling under the effects of this entire session. God bless you guys. It was amazing. I just totally thoroughly enjoyed myself. I know this is going to make my facilitation sessions much better. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjeev.
Thank you.
Let's see if we have more questions or comments in the room. Otherwise, I'm going to just share the contact number of everybody. You can take a picture of this. And in case some question occurs later after this, or any comment or any conversations you would like to do, we all are available for that. Also, there are some webinars which are coming up. We would like to use this lockdown time and even after that, when we are actually celebrating 25 years of ICF, just want to give back to the society through some of the topics which are rare, not heard of much, and maybe can bring some insights to all of you. So we request all of you to join. We have your email IDs. We'll send you the schedule also. And we really request that you register for these sessions and join us and make these conversations more richer for us.
Hi, Jaya. I want to say something.
Sure, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kamaldeep. First of all, I just want to say, Jaya, these were some amazing questions you asked. And I think a lot of those questions were my questions as well. So thank you for sort of really putting it out there and making life easy for me. These were really bang on questions. And my mind is definitely looking at layers that are beneath some of the comments and some of the observations and experiences that have been shared by the panelists, and very well observed. Thanks a lot for sharing your experiences with different clients. It certainly helps us leverage on the work that you people have done and some of the learnings that we can pick from this session, and sort of immediately get a perspective when we interact with our clients. So thank you very much. And I just hope and request, Jaya, that a session around team coaching, another session around team coaching, around the logistics, the administrative, how it works on the ground, etc., can be organized, because I think that would be immensely useful. I still am thinking on around one specific observation, that when there is a conflict in a team, when there are issues in a team, why is it that clients always think about team building? Let's do team building. Let's call somebody in for team building. Why is it that team coaching, the value of team coaching and the long-term sustainable solutions around team coaching are not being recognized by organizations? And why is it that, everybody wants to just get into the bandwagon of team building, as if this is one quick fix that's going to just resolve all their problems forever and ever? And I would certainly want to play a part and contribute to talking about team coaching and the benefits around team coaching. And yeah, I mean, I think it's not just going to be about selling, as Avik said. It's more about what value it can create for the organization. Like you rightly said, you're not selling products, you're basically selling ideas and solutions that work for business. So thanks a lot, Jaya, and thanks everybody for sharing your experiences and observations with us.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
may I know we are end of time. I just want to have just one quick response to what Kamaldeep is saying. And I like to be, so there is a value to the team building also. And I know Kamaldeep, you weren't saying that there is no value to it. A
Yeah.
framework that I borrow from a friend of mine who's a psychologist in New Zealand, Dave Winsborough. And he's written a nice book called Fusion. Dave talks about this framework, which has helped me a lot. He says there is the hard stuff of teams, there is the soft stuff of teams, and there is the deep stuff of teams, right? The hard stuff is all the structure, who's on the team, what are their roles, is there clarity on goals, missions, purpose. The soft stuff is how do we interact with each other. Most of the team building stuff happens at that soft stuff. Most of the talent stuff or restructuring happens at the hard stuff. But the hardest stuff is the deep stuff, which is where coaching operates. And so there's a place for team building, but there's an opportunity to take teams deeper into the deep stuff, right? And that's where team coaching begins doing it. So it may not be a solution for everyone, nor might it be a solution every time. And hence people go to saying, let's do team building because it's a safer and it's also a whole entity, right? Because and it still gets to the soft stuff where the issues are.
It'd be great if you could share the Fusion framework with us, Pratnya.
Sure, absolutely. I'll give you a link to his book. It's also available on Kindle. It's a nice little, I mean, it's just things that have influenced all of us in our work, right? So.
Yeah, and there is a podcast that Janine has shared with me. So I'm going to share all the resources put together in an email and send it to all of you. And it'll be nice to just stay connected and learn from each other as to what is happening, how are we contributing in our own, in our own measures. So that's how you exchange knowledge and information, right?
Yeah, and
so
maybe next time chat can be enabled.
Chat is enabled?
No, it's disabled.
I'm so sorry.
No problem.
I was wondering why nobody is actually writing anything to me.
Oh my God. Yeah, I thought that was by design.
No, I'm sorry. That's my
no worries. No worries.
Great. So thank you so much. Rajeshri wants to say something, I think. Let me just see. Yeah, let me unmute you. Yeah. Can you hear us?
For the current mode, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah. Current scenario, like for the coaching an online environment other than an offline, like is there a different
there seems to be network is breaking, it seems. Would you like to repeat your question, Ratri?
Okay. Chat is enabled now.
Yes.
Harish, do you want to just type in your question? I heard something about online versus offline. Can teaching be done in a virtual environment?
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to make out.
Yes.
And that's the question. Okay. How do you do this in offline or online environment?
Yeah. You just have to give, sorry, I'll give my answer because in fact I'm, anyway, based on my experience, it takes a little longer time. So make sure that you've given enough time and yet don't make it like these 4-hour things. So it's sort of getting that right sweet spot. I think it helps to, just the way Jaya did with the panel, to have some structured questions to kind of guide the team forward. And then of course, just be able to talk. And pretty much it works quite nicely in a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams or whatever collaboration tool your client may be using, you know.
Great. So wonderful. Thank you so much, my dear panelists. It was really, really amazing to hear your experiences and knowledge, because I think I gained a lot of perspective today. And I'm really thankful, this being the first webinar You have agreed to give your time. I'm really grateful for that. There is a comment from Nikhil. It says it would be nice if you can get suggestions to best books on team coaching. So we're going to send you that, Nikhil. I'm going to put all the resources together and send it to all of you, and share some of the links where you can go and read about team coaching, some of the podcasts that are available. So we'll do that after the call. And thank you for your time, everyone. Thank you so much for coming along. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.